Good morning and welcome to the MD3 podcast, and I'm Ronnie Davis, and today we are talking about the NCAA Division I Women's Lacrosse Championship brackets. And last night was the selection show at 9 o'clock last night on ESPNU. The powers to be selected 29 teams to participate in the NCAA Women's One Championship, and several of them were automatic qualifiers. Some of them were, teams that got pulled aside from their conference tournaments, and a lot of them, I think that we thought that we knew the first four, right? As far as UNC, we'll start with UNC. They were chosen number one overall. They won the ACC tournament by beating Boston College in the ACC championship last weekend. Well-deserved. They're undefeated, well-coached. They have a tremendous amount of players that can go out there and definitely compete against the best, if not being the best, and with a lot of freshmen. And I'll mention, they got, Eliza Osborne, who hails from Colorado. She's making a wonderful impact there as a freshman. Katie Levy, who had some outstanding individual plays in the ACC championship against Boston College. A really big goal she had after causing a turnover and running the length of the field. And then you got, some other kids, Ashley Humphreys, who didn't have a standout game that day, but she's a senior. And the reason why she didn't have a standout day is because Michaela O'Connor, pretty much face guarded her the whole entire game and limited her touches. So that, leaves, her sister Chloe, who's a redshirt freshman this year. Chloe had a wonderful day, 3 goals, 2 assists. She's their top scorer. And, you put that whole package together with a defense like North Carolina has, led by Brooklyn Walker-Welch and Sam Forrest and Emma Traggio with Betty Nelson in goal. They're tough. Carolina's tough, but I'm going to say they are undefeated, but they're not unbeatable. Excuse me. So they're going to get the number 1 seed. They're going to play at home. They're going to host for the first 2 rounds at least. So they're going to play the winner of Navy-Clemson. Navy ended up winning their conference tournament, beating Loyola to get the nod this year for the tournament. And Clemson was an at-large bid. And I think Clemson really got their bid with, making their way to the semifinals of the ACC tournament. Well-deserved for Clemson. And I think that'll be a great game between Navy and Clemson, and the winner will play UNC. On the other side, Princeton is an at-large bid. They lost the Ivy League championship this past weekend to a very tough Yale team. I thought Princeton has been playing outstanding. They had an unbelievable game against, I believe it was Penn in the semifinals for that tournament, and they're going to be playing UMass, and UMass is got the automatic qualifier for their conference, and they're playing really, really well right now. So that's going to be a great game between Princeton and UMass, and then Liberty won their conference tournament. They're going to play Johns Hopkins first, and Johns Hopkins, which it came in number 8. So they're going to host, which was a surprise to me. I didn't think Hopkins would make that jump to number 8 and be a host, for the simple fact that Stanford, kind of beats them out in a couple of the qualifying features. And Stanford's been playing real well, but I think Stanford kind of got screwed here because of where they are. Stanford, obviously in California, and the committee decided to not make them a host site, in my opinion, because they would have had to fly 3 teams out to Stanford in order for them to host, and obviously costs and financials are always a consideration when doing this. But I didn't think that the committee would break from it from the top 8. Kind of bends the integrity of the tournament when you break from geography in the top 8. But it is what it is. So Johns Hopkins will host, and it looks like they will play Liberty first, and then they're going to play the winner of Princeton and UMass. So that should be a very exciting bracket. And then they're all, going to, obviously, in my opinion, going to meet in Chapel Hill for the quarterfinal. So my prediction for that top bracket is going to be John Hopkins playing UNC for in the quarterfinals. If you step down a little, Virginia came in with a number 5 seed, which I pretty much figured that. I thought it would be either Virginia or Maryland. But Virginia got the number 5 seed because they did beat Maryland head-to-head earlier in the season. And their first game out of the gate, they're going to play Long Island University, who won their conference championship and made the NCAA tournament. And then you got JMU and Duke are going to play off to see who plays the winner of Virginia Long Island. So in the JMU Duke game, these two have not played each other yet this year, but Virginia, who will end up probably playing one of these two, have won beat JMU this past season and have beaten Duke. So there could be some revenge factors on the line with JMU and Duke, wanting to play Virginia, but they got to get through each other first. In my opinion, Duke's going to come out on top, and I think you're going to see a Duke Virginia quarterfinal game. Or, I'm sorry, regional game. Drop down a little bit more. Stanford has to travel to Florida. Denver has to travel to Florida. Mercer has to travel to Florida. Florida comes in at number 4. The 4 seed will host, and I think that Florida will have an easy day with Mercer, and then they're going to have to play the winner of Stanford and Denver. Stanford went to Denver this year and lost handedly. Denver handed them one of their 2 losses, or one of their out-of-conference losses, I guess you could say. And I think that's going to be a good game, but if I was to put an opinion on it, I think Denver's going to come out on top there. So I think you're going to see the second round regional in Florida. It's going to be Florida against Denver. Jumping down to the bottom bracket, the 2 and the 3. So we'll start with Northwestern, came in at number 3. And they're going to host out there in Evanston. And first game of that weekend is going to be Michigan-Akron. Akron, hats off to them. They won the conference tournament. They got a bid for the tournament, but I don't believe there are going to be any match for Michigan. Michigan's going to have revenge on their brains for Northwestern. Michigan has not beaten Northwestern in quite some while. So I think Hannah Nielsen and her crew who are a great staff, and they got a lot of great talented players. I think you're going to see a great game between Northwestern and Michigan for that second round game, which will be next Sunday. You drop down a little bit, and then Maryland pops in. Maryland popped in at number 6, and they're going to host. So Army, who won the conference tournament by beating Loyola, is going to play Fairfield, and I think the Army is going to be the winner out of that, and therefore they're going to face Maryland on Sunday, Mother's Day next week, and that's going to be a great game. The great thing about this top of this bracket is, in my opinion, I say great, is that Northwestern's got to get past Michigan and Maryland, which are both, conference opponents. And that's not easy because they've already played each other twice. Once in the regular season, Northwestern played Maryland a second time in the Big Ten championship, beating them by a goal. Maryland was up by quite a few. They let Northwestern back in it. Northwestern fought back and ended up winning the game by 1. And in that, Northwestern, I don't think it's very easy to beat a team 3 times, but they're going to have to get past a tough Michigan team who's, going to be very physical. And then if Northwestern does get past that, they're going to have to get past Maryland, who's been playing great lately. Drop down, Boston College, number 2 seed overall, but Yale got the number 7 seed, so they're going to host as well, and they're look to face Albany. Albany, hats off to them. They won their conference championship, and then they have Syracuse and Bryant in the bracket below. So Syracuse will play Bryant, and then the winner of Yale-Albany. My predictions: I think that Yale will end up beating Albany. I think Syracuse will end up beating Bryant to face off next Sunday for that bracket. My prediction is Cuse ends up going to the quarterfinal. That's my prediction because, look, Syracuse has taken their beatings this year. They've won some good games as well, but I think, based on the end of their season, the way they went out in, their last game of the season against Boston College, and then, they didn't play very well in the ACC tournament. I think they went back to the drawing board, and I think they got some great young players mixed with some older veterans that, they're going to have a good mix, and I think they're going to at least make a run, and I think they're going to get out of that bracket and get to the quarterfinals. Back to Boston College, hosting first game. But BC has a bye in the first game on Friday. Loyola will play Stony Brook. I'm not very comfortable with either, Loyola or Stony Brook, to be quite honest with you. I think they both, can have great days. Loyola has Georgia Latch, who has been putting points up unbelievably in the last half of the season. I think if you take away the first half, which she still did good the first half, if you take away the second half of the season, I think she's been putting up 5 to 8 to 10 points a game, which is huge. And so I believe that Georgia Latch and company will get them through the first game against Stony Brook. And then you're going to see a BC Loyola second round game next Sunday on Mother's Day. My prediction there is BC already beat them once this year. I think BC's just got a little too much firepower for Loyola or Stony Brook. Thing with Stony Brook is they're going to play a tough zone defense against Loyola. We'll see how that works. But I think it's going to be Boston College, Loyola from there. My prediction for the quarterfinals. I think UNC will end up winning their bracket up there. I do. So they're the number 1 seed. They will go to the quarterfinals, and I think, will end up playing Johns Hopkins, in my opinion, for that. The next quarterfinals will be, I think it's going to be Florida and Virginia. I think Virginia's going to get through Duke in the second round, and then they're going to end up playing Florida in the quarterfinals. Northwestern will host their quarterfinal game. I think they're going to end up playing Maryland, personally. I think they get by Michigan. That's going to be a great game to watch. But then they got to get through Maryland, and I think that that quarterfinal game might be the best quarterfinals going to watch. That one, Northwestern versus Maryland. Again, will be a rematch of the Big Ten championship. And then going down a little further, you're going to have Boston College, I think, is going to end up playing Syracuse. I think Syracuse beats Albany, beats Bryant, and I think Yale's going to beat Albany, and I think Syracuse is going to end up beating Yale to go to the quarterfinals of the NCAA tournament, which will be a huge boost for Syracuse because, like I said, they have not had a strong ending to their season. They lost Olivia Adamson early on. Ashley Volpe is still a question mark as far as her health is concerned. We thought we'd see her back recovering from her knee injury, and she got back, and then she has a hip problem. So if she's healthy, if Ashley Volpe's healthy, who I believe is right now off the grid with the majority of the teams. I believe she's one of the best left-handed attackers in the country. If Syracuse can get Ashley back healthy, if Syracuse can manage the game a little better, getting their younger kids to step up, kids such as Molly Guzik, she's going to have to step up. Caroline Trinkus is going to have to step up and score some more goals. Also on that, Emma Ward, who is a senior, All-American, she needs a supporting cast, and I think that if those kids can step up to help Emma Ward and take a little load off her shoulder, I think Syracuse can be a contender at least to get to the quarterfinals. I think when they get to the quarterfinals against Boston College, in the regular season game, it was 17-2 was the final. I don't think Syracuse has quite the firepower to match Boston College, but any given day. Back up to UNC, they're the number 1 seed. They won the ACC championship, I think, that John Hopkins is really the sleeper here, even though the committee made them number 8 seed. Obviously, they're not a sleeper with the committee, but they've been playing outstanding. And they ended up playing Northwestern to a 1-goal game in the Big Ten championship. The first game out in Northwestern, they got hammered pretty well. So I think they're up and coming. And they're really Tim McCormick there is the coach. He's an excellent coach, one of the best in the business, in my opinion. And I think he's going to have John Hopkins ready to play against UNC in that quarterfinal game. Florida and Virginia are my predictions for the other quarterfinal. I'm not sure. I haven't seen a ton of Florida play this year, but they're very well coached. Manny O'Leary and Reggie Thorpe are excellent coaches. And then you got the LaMonica's coach in Virginia who are doing a wonderful job with them, and they get better each day. So that's going to be a good game. That's going to be a good bracket to see who comes out of that, into that quarterfinal. But who wins that quarterfinal? I'm gonna have to put my money on Florida there. So I think Florida's going to come out of there as the quarterfinal winner, and I think that they're going to end up facing UNC in the semifinals down in at Gillette Stadium this year. The women's and the men's are at the same place, and that's going to be a great weekend. So my prediction for the Final Four, I think you're going to see UNC. I think you're going to see. I can't get my prediction on Northwestern and Maryland. I can't do it. Because I think it's just going to be too tough a game to pick right now. So I'm going to hold off on that one. But you're going to have UNC, Boston College, either Northwestern or Florida. Or I'm sorry, Northwestern or Maryland. And then I think you're going to see Florida playing UNC in that bracket. So it's going to be a great tournament. I'm not sure how many upsets we're going to see because through this season, there hasn't been a ton of, holy cow, this team beat that team or this team beat this team. There hasn't been a ton of that. So I think it's going to stay true to the tournament, except for there's going to be a couple upsets. Probably not right off the bat, but you never know. I mean, it is tournament time. And I just think that it's going to be a great tournament. And I'm rooting for Boston College to be super successful there. Some of these teams, we'll talk real quick about some of these teams, who they have to lean on. Let's start with the 1 seed. As I said, the defense of UNC is outstanding. They play man-to-man defense. Teams are going to have to figure out how to get through that defense. They're late sliders. They play tremendous one-on-one defense, and then hold. In my opinion, the way to beat UNC is obviously you have to score your goals on them. But the more that you can keep control of the ball against them, the better. If you, for example, and I like to share this because I think it's super most important. UNC has a very, very high-powered offense. They have a tremendous attack with Humphrey and Godine and the other Humphrey and Marissa White, and then they got midfielders coming in that are outstanding with Harden and Levy and Osborne. So you have these great offensive players. And of course, to go up against them, you need great defensive players, and I think most teams will have that. But as to show in the ACC championship, Boston College has a great defense led by Jen Kent. Everyone in America knows that Boston College has a great defense, and they held them to respectively 13 goals. It was 14 goals, but the last goal in the last second without Dolce in the net, I don't really count that. So it's another 1-goal game, but held Carolina to 13 goals, which I thought is very respectable. I think they created. In my opinion, if you can hold Carolina to 13 goals, you can win that game. What I don't think that Boston College did, and I think that any teams playing UNC should do, is bring that shot clock on your possessions down to 30 seconds. And if you can take a minute off the clock in 10 possessions in the first half and 10 possessions in the second half, you have realistically played defense without them and not allowing them to have a goal for 20 minutes out of the game. Excuse me. If you can do that, I think that it puts you in a much better position to be competitive against UNC and possibly win that game. Now, the draw controls, yes, that was an issue against Boston College. But if you even it out, besides for the last quarter, if you even it out, the possessions that Carolina had and the possessions that Boston College had were pretty close. In the last quarter, yes, Boston College had, I think, 6 possessions, scored 3 times, and Carolina had 11 possessions. So the draw controls really hurt Boston College in the last quarter. But if you even out the whole game, the possessions were probably in the favor of North Carolina, but not by that many. And the shot clock obviously helps that. So my theory would come to play is the more that you can, get your offense together in the last 30 seconds of a possession rather than, going to the goal in the first 20 seconds and, losing the ball or so forth, or, turning the ball over and giving Carolina extra possessions really plays into their favor. So if any coaches are listening out there that have to play UNC, my recommendation would be, get that possession down to 30 seconds, then run your offense and take a minute off the clock every possession you have. And that would, prevent UNC from having to play offense for those other 20 minutes now, and that means you've had a shutout for 20 minutes in that game, which is along all lines and stats pretty damn good, especially when you're facing UNC. Second seed Boston College, they're going to have to practice hard this week, manage the games against the teams. They're going to play. From what I recall, Stony Brook plays a zone. Loyola, I believe, plays a zone. I'm pretty sure. So BC's going to have to fix up their personnel, right? I know that Lydia Calasante is out, and with a knee injury, she will not be returning this season. That is a huge hit for the Eagles. But you have to adjust, and so I think Boston College is going to go to work and rely on McKenna Davis and Rachel Clark and Emma Pinto. I think they're going to have to get Mia Mascone into the plays a little more, and Molly Driscoll. Midfield wise, we got Devin Russell, Colbert. That have played irregular shifts all year. Maria Thamaris from UPenn has played regular shifts all year. So I think that those kids are going to have to be ready to go tournament time. And then the defense, led by Shea Baker. And, that's a heck of a defense back there. Morgan Smith, transfer from Penn as well. And, of course, in goal, you got Shea Dolce, who, in my opinion, is the best goalie in the country. When you have her backstop, and you can definitely go out and take some, shots at some people, take some risks, and knowing that she's back there. But I think at the end of the day, if you look at history, Boston College has gotten better every single day throughout the season, and come tournament time, they've been to the championship game the last 7 years in a row, and I think Coach Weinstein. Acacia is going to have them ready for this tournament. And like I said, that's my opinion. The 3 seed Northwestern, they're going to be ready. They got Delaney Schweitzer in goal. They got Madison Taylor on the offensive end, and then they got a great supporting cast. And I think that's super important. I think Jane Hansen, defender, has been playing outstanding. I call her the variable. I think that she saved the game for them in the championship game, Big Ten championship against Maryland, by getting her stick on Corey Edmondson's stick on the free position to tie the game. I think she's the unsung hero of that team. We all know about Madison Taylor. She's going to put up the points. She's going to put up the goals. But I think that they're very super well coached with Kelly and Scott. Definitely going to be ready for this tournament, as they always are. Going to number 4, Florida. They haven't played a great schedule, but they ended up making it to the Final Four last year. They can't be counted out, and they can't be underestimated. Like I said before, well coached Mandy O'Leary and Reggie Thorpe coaching that team. They're going to be prepared to play, and they play a great style of lacrosse. They don't hold back. And I think that they're kind of sick of everyone saying, oh, Florida doesn't, they have a weak schedule. Of course, they're going to get there. They got there last year and they competed. And I think that they're going to, be there competitive this year in this year's tournament. So we'll jump to number 5, Virginia. Virginia has taken a couple beatings this year, right? They, Boston College handed them a fairly lopsided loss on 2 occasions. But Virginia's got poise, they got grit, they got Kate Gallica at the midfield, they got Jenna DiNardo on attack, they got Madison Alamo on attack, the lefty attacker. They're young, they're tough. They run a rover backer defense led by Olivia Bruno, who's back there, and I think Mel Joseph is the goalie. She's been playing fantastic. Virginia's got to be someone you have to watch out for. They, obviously they came in at number 5 seed. So number 6, Maryland. Oh, up and down. They took a beating in the beginning of the year from Syracuse. I thought Maryland was going to collapse. I didn't think Maryland would bounce back, but they always do. Led by head coach Kathy Reese, and their main player is a junior, Corey Edmondson, redshirt junior. I think she's due to a knee injury, she's got an extra year, and she's outstanding. I think she ended up being the Big Ten midfielder of the year. Corey is a strong, powerful midfielder who can definitely control the tempo of a game. Their goalie, JJ Sirianni, who was outstanding in the game against Northwestern. She had 19 saves, I believe, 17 saves, excuse me, in that game. And if she has a tournament like she had an ACC tournament or the Big Ten tournament, Maryland is going to be tough to beat. Other kids out there, you got Kayla Gilmore, who's putting up some goals. Devin Livingston, who's starting to play better. She obviously, both Kayla and Devin are freshmen. They've gotten better throughout the year, but the Terps are definitely relying on them to handle their end of things. And defensively, and I'm sorry I'm not prepared, but I don't have it in front of me. Number 25 for Maryland, the defender, might be one of my favorite defenders in the country. She is so athletic, and I think she is going to anchor that defense along with JJ Sirianni to lead their way through the tournament. And I think Maryland has a really good chance of making it to the Final Four this year. Yale. Okay. Love Erica Bamford. She's a great coach. She's got great players. Phelan Vaughn, one of the top players in the country. I'm just not sold that Yale is going to be able to get through. I think that Syracuse is going to end up beating them, but you can't. I mean, they came back this past weekend and they kicked the crap out of Princeton. I thought Princeton was going to win that game by 5 or 10, just because the 2 days before, Princeton was unbelievable in their game when they had to come back and win that game on Friday. Mackenzie Blake is putting up big numbers, and so is Doran. Those 2 kids are outstanding, and I didn't think Yale would stand a chance against them this time around. They ended up beating them handedly, I think by 5 or 6 goals. So you can't count Yale out. I'm just not sold that they're going to be able to get past the ACC team again. They already beat Syracuse once this year. I think that Syracuse ends up taking them out. Last but not least, again, John Hopkins. Oh boy, what is going on with Hopkins? They are on the rise. Coached by Tim McCormick. As I said before, he's one of the top Division I coaches in the country, in my opinion. He has, brought John Hopkins back from the dead, and he has some great players. I believe his best player, his number 1 scorer, is out with an injury that doesn't suit them well. But he's got a bunch of kids that, you don't know all their names because everyone is chipping in. He's got just an outstanding supporting cast. He's got a great transfer from Boston College, Lacey Downey, who has come in and had been a huge impact for them this year. Ava Angelo from Syracuse, New York. She has, really stepped up. She's a junior this year, and she's putting in goals in bunches. So, I think John Hopkins is the sleeper. I think that they're going to end up putting up a great game against UNC. I think UNC ends up winning that game, but it's going to be a good one to watch because I think Tim McCormick is a great coach, and he's going to get through this tournament and with flying colors, and I'm hoping to see that because I'm a big fan of Tim's, and I think he's a great coach. And if I was UNC, that would be a thorn in my side right there, knowing that I got to play John Hopkins. So that's my wrap up. That's my predictions for the NCAA tournament coming out of MD3 Lax here on the podcast. I'm Ronnie Davis, and those are my predictions, and we'll come back next week after the first and second rounds of this tournament, and we'll recap my predictions and see where we go from there. But thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next week.